I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only...
Welcome to NUFC Matters for Ladies' Night, as it is every Monday. Big thanks to Darren Baldwin's Funerals, who have picked a rather apt week to come on board as a monthly sponsor after yesterday's debacle. But big thanks to them for coming on board as a main sponsor. QTech Shop as well, .co.uk, the Wallsend based snooker and pool table company are still involved as well. But big thanks to everyone for chipping in to join. Let's get straight on with it, ladies. And Samantha, Sav, Kendall, where on earth do we start after that? We were all buoyed up with the win at West Ham, and although it wasn't a convincing win at midweek against Blackburn in the Cup, we got through. It was 2 wins, 2 clean sheets. But Samantha, bad start really yesterday, and never really recovered.
It was so poor. I think, West Ham we did enough. Blackburn, I thought we were awful. I felt bad for Blackburn in the Cup. And when we saw the team news come out and we saw the setup for the game against Brighton, I think a few of us were scratching our heads, thinking, we know what way they play. And that formation, that setup just seemed a little bit odd. Within the first 10 minutes, the game was over. We were shell-shocked. We had players looking at each other. And from then on in, it was just a horror show. There was no fight. There was no desire. I could see players looking at each other, screaming at each other, trying to get them in the position. It was just so bad. And the second half didn't improve. He switched it about. It sounds like he's taken it on the chin a little bit in terms of what he planned. But for me, I'm just gobsmacked at how he can look at our squad and bring in new players and then play something from the 1980s. If I'm St. Max and I think we're going to play 4-4-2 all season, I want to leave. I'm not a right midfielder. I don't want to track back. That's not what I'm there for. And it seems like they had a little think about the problems that Lamptey would cause us, and he still thought that St. Max was the best option above a Ritchie, above an Almiron in that scenario. And, a knock or not, that was a really poor game for St. Max. And, it could be a hit on him for a while. I was very, very angry about the performance, very angry about a lot of performances within the team.
Yeah, I think we all were. Sav, it was we never really recovered from the penalty giveaway by St. Maximin anyway, did we? And Lamptey was on fire. I think Martin Nesbitt, who comes on a Sunday, had more or less confirmed what we all thought, that Lamptey's was worth a gamble. He said we should have signed him, and he really, really did just take the mick out of Lewis. Lewis looked great against West Ham, but yesterday he looked out of his depth against Lamptey, and we never recovered, did we, from that opening 10 minutes?
No, he ran roughshod over us the whole match, really, didn't he? I think it was before the match when you see Bruce Steve Bruce the day before, and he was giving all these excuses out about how great Brighton were at holding possession, and it's like a pre-talk to prepare us for the worst, I feel, when he does that. And then it was scrappy. Our tackles were sloppy. We were just chopping players down. How we didn't get a red card in that, I was thinking we were definitely headed that way with our tackling skills. There was no flow. There was players playing way too deep, not rushing in, trying to get the ball. It was lazy. No one looked interested. After 10 minutes, I wanted to switch it off. I didn't, because I kind of like some weird sort of self-punishment, carried on watching it. I had a stress nap in half time. But other than that, it was just like, it was awful.
Yeah, Kendall, it was awful, wasn't it? There's no other way to describe it.
It really, there isn't any way to describe it. There was not one positive out of the game yesterday, apart from Almiron coming on, who was a little tiny spark of positivity from when he came on. Other than that, I have absolutely not one good word to say about anyone, about not one player, not Bruce, not anything. It was just completely negative. But as we all know, playing 4-4-2 already was a negative tactic straight away, because we ended up playing far too deep, which left St. Maximin to defend, which we all are quite aware is not a defender. He's our most creative attacking player. So I don't honestly know why he was left to defend at right back. It was just a shambles from the off. Clearly, there was no research done prior to the game from Bruce and his team, because then otherwise they would have seen what a threat Lamptey was against Brighton's previous opponents, Chelsea, his old team, and they would have seen that, and they would have obviously changed it to fit around that. I mean, St. Maximin's not even a wing back, so I don't even honestly know why Bruce looked at that and thought, yeah, we'll leave him and Lewis to cover that, because honestly, I just really don't know. Almiron's one of the fastest players in the squad, so if there was any pace sort of needed, he would have been it, but he didn't even start. I just don't really know what to say from that. It was completely negative. We were fouling all over the shop. We looked like our heads went down straight away after the second goal, completely went down. It was just a horrible, scrappy game. Whether Max was injured or not, I'm not entirely sure. Because as soon as he gives that penalty away, that was him finished for the game. Apparently he rolled his ankle. Whether or not that's correct, Bruce then came out in his post-match conference and said, you know what, he was injured after the first goal. I should have took him off earlier. So you let him play on for 20 minutes, knowing that there's a history of St. Maximin playing on injured, which left him out for 4 weeks last season. Like, can you not learn from your mistakes last time? If he tells you he's all right, it doesn't matter. You could see that he was hobbling. Even if it was fake or not, you could see it. So surely learning from your mistakes last season, that would be the right thing to do, but nothing was changed. Honestly, like Sam, I was just so angry yesterday. I just thought this is crazy. It can't go on like this. And yeah, everyone's saying, oh, it's only second game in, it's only 2 games in, you can't just put your head down. But if that's what we've got to look forward to, how can we have our heads up? How can we look forward to the rest of the season? Because if that's a show of what we've got to come, I'm absolutely dreading it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I've noticed Samantha's got it, but I think her glass is getting bigger when there's a defeat. You had to use 2 hands. You had to have 2 hands to drink that. You'll be by the time the season finishes, you could end up with a bucket. But I mean, I think Andrew makes a good point. It's funny. I was saying this to one of my mates today. Bruce got the tactics wrong. You just can't copy the tactics from the previous game. That's ignorance about the team you're playing next. You've got to try and negate the threats of your opponents. And to be honest, if you look back on the videos that we did last week, I think most of us were saying after the Blackburn game, we're looking forward to getting back to the team who played West Ham. And, for most of us, I think we all said an unchanged team. Maybe 1 or 2 said maybe bring Almiron in. But on the majority of people who do NUFC Matters, I think most of us said an unchanged team. Now, none of us are paid a vast amount of money to pick that team. Steve Bruce is. And Steve Bruce should be the one who looks at our opponents coming up and goes, actually, looking at the way Brighton set up in the last game, Lamptey looks a threat. He's got a bit of pace. Maybe I should give Andy Carroll a rest and bring Almiron in because he's got a bit of pace. Let's put them on the back foot. We're at home. But that's not what happened. And unfortunately, we're now all sitting here, watching the knee-jerk reaction, which always happens on social media, Twitter in particular. Bruce should be out. Bruce should be sacked. Bruce is rubbish. Look at his record. And last season I was as guilty as the next man for doing all of that. I've come into this season after supporting the club since I was, 12 years of age. I'm 48 now, and just thought, right, this season, especially doing NUFC Matters, I'm going to be a little bit more calm. I'm not going to make knee-jerk reactions after a game. I'm going to wait until the next day. I'm going to assess it. I'm going to look at it again, watch it. And, to be honest, I can see why people are up a height. But we have only played 3 games. We've played 2 in the league, won 1, lost 1. We won away and we've lost at home, and we've progressed to the next round of the cup. So in the grand scheme of things at the moment, it's not complete panic stations. We've lost a game a bit like Steve Bruce did a lot last season against a team we all expected to get 3 points against. But then when you look at the results against Brighton, they're not great. So I am going to sit on the fence a little bit with this one and say, look, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. We've still got a bit of time in the transfer window, and let's see what else Steve Bruce is allowed to bring in by the owner. The owner was there again. Keith Bishop was back in the stands as well. Let's hope they can see what we can all see and that is that the squad is still not strong enough. And if he's got any hope of staying up the season, Steve Bruce, needs to be able to bring a few more players in, and hopefully that's what happens. Lee Taylor asks us all a question, Samantha. He says, if Bruce got sacked this season and Newcastle took the same approach as the likes of Man United by appointing a legend, who would you like in? Steve Watson, he's done a great job with Gateshead York. I've got to be honest, Lee, no offence, mate. Steve's a great lad. Maybe even he would admit that it might be a little bit too soon for him to get the job. I know Lee Clark would love it as well. He probably comes in there. But I suppose, Samantha, is there anybody up the top of your head who's a former Newcastle United legend who would spring to mind, who you would like to see in the hot seat? Lee fancies Steve Watson. Geordie lad, of course, that's what he would have in his favour. I do know, as well, he's had success in there, but it would be a gamble bringing him into this kind of level.
Yeah. Actually, I was reading something earlier, and it was Nobby Solano, who's in charge of Peru at the minute, and he was talking about the young player that we're being linked with at the minute, and the fact that they're keeping an eye on him, taking that step up internationally. And I just thought, you know what, he's done a really good job. He loves the club. Like, anytime we talk about your best players, Nobby Solano pops up straight away. I can't really think of any other players. I love Joey Barton as well. I think he's doing really well for Fleetwood, but he's not at that level. I don't think we have too many options in those kind of higher coaching categories and levels. But as I said today, just reading something on Twitter from Nobby Solano, I just thought, you know what, he's in charge of an international team. Why not? I get the fans on side.
Yeah, okay. Sav, is there any ex-legends you'd like to see back at the club who, look, Steve Bruce is obviously a good manager, but he certainly doesn't appear to be a coach. He doesn't have a plan B at the best of times. Yesterday, he didn't have a plan A. Is there anybody you'd like to see? Alan Shearer, perhaps? Would you give Alan a second chance? But he wouldn't come back under Ashley, of course. But would you like to see Alan, back, or is there anybody else that springs to mind?
No, I wouldn't like to see it. Not in the, in that sort of. I'd like to see him back in the club in some sort of realm, but not as sort of like coach. I think I've read the same article as Sam today, because I was just about to say the same thing. And obviously, there's the link with the player that's there as well, that he was talking about. And I just think, when you think of legends, like as Sam said, Nobby Solano comes up all the time, and I think that if I had to pick one, it would be him. Okay,
and Kendall, your views on that?
Yeah, Nobby's a good shout. Mine was going to be Joey Barton, but as Sam says, he's only the manager of Fleetwood. You don't know how he would handle the pressures of a Premier League club, especially when we all know that he is not the most calm, temperamented person. So whether he'd handle the pressures of a Premier League club, I don't know. For me, it wouldn't even be about managerial experience or what they've done, because, for example, like Les Ferdinand did a statement today for QPR, and basically took absolutely no crap off the media, and that is something that I would like to see. I know obviously Bruce in the past, like in his press conference and stuff, he's called journalists out, which I appreciate. But for me, it would be all about how someone handled the job rather than what their experience was, because look at ex-players. Jonathan Woodgate managed Middlesbrough, got sacked. Scott Parker got Fulham promoted, and he's obviously an ex-player of ours, legend or not, but he's not doing too badly to get them promoted in his first season as manager. But yeah, there's no one of a burning desire for me to come back to the club at the moment, to be honest, because I think we need someone who has experience and who is quite up to date with the game, because as Sam said as well, yesterday just showed that we were going backwards in terms of how we progressing with the way we play football. So yeah, it would be someone who was modern and had like more of a modernistic approach to the game, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. Mad Mark would like to see Rafa back. Spenny Mag says Joey Barton would be his choice. Adam Beckett, who's just become a member. Cheers, Adam, who does the show on a Sunday and does the lives, says Nobby would be great as a gaffer. Joe McClellan says Duncan Ferguson. Malcolm Taylor, who will come to your point in a minute, he would fancy Supermac. Adam Beckett says Big Duncan Ferguson. His time was a little bit too short. Tom Dixon, Darren Cowan both go for Eddie Howe, obviously not a Newcastle legend. Russell Johnson fancies Gaza, and well, that would be a laugh if nothing else. Brian Brian Croup would like Rafa back as well. Mark Cooper fancies Chris Hughton back as well. So, plenty suggestions there. I think Trulls makes the point that Barton's too angry. Mr. Soze says, Paul Dalglish, we're scraping the barrel there, mate. We'll be, I always like it when we go down these comments. It always seems to happen on Ladies' Night. We always get like a multitude of wrong answers, people who you would never have. Malcolm, anyway, good evening, mate. He says, after yesterday's very disappointing result, do you think we still need more new players? If so, in which positions? Samantha, over to you on that one first then.
I think it's tough. At what point do we wonder how many new players Steve Bruce needs to bring in? I mean, he's got a fair few in now. You can always improve your squad. Our squad desperately needs better players when we have enough money to get the right better players in, hopefully if a takeover happens. My thoughts are that our squad on paper is decent. I don't think that Steve Bruce knows how to get the best out of it. We have teams like Burnley, for example, who don't have world beaters, but they have a manager that knows exactly what to do with that squad. He has an idea, he has a philosophy, and he gets the board to back him mostly in those areas. They have an identity. We have absolutely nothing like that. And, we brought Callum Wilson in, brilliant. And then we have Alan St. Maximum playing out of position, Almiron on the bench. Shelby could have a good game or a bad game and he's going to play anyway. So, players are not playing up to their potential. And yeah, let's bring new players in. But unless we get structure and the tactics right and develop some kind of footballing philosophy, it doesn't matter what players we bring in. So yes, we could get a new right back, a new centre back, some legs in midfield. Great. Is Bruce going to get the best out of them? I don't believe so. And I said it in the first show in July, and I've said it every week since, that until Steve Bruce understands what way he wants his team to play, we're going to be in trouble. And at the minute, we have 3 formations that he could easily revert to for Spurs. And that worries me, because how does a player get comfortable with his teammates and with the ideology of what the manager wants if you're just not sure what he wants from you or who he believes his best team is? So, I mean, if I was Mike Ashley, I would either panic buy or I would think I'm not giving him any more money. To be honest, he should have enough, and that's what I believe.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting the next couple of weeks, that's for certain. Sav, who do we need? Where do we need to strengthen after those first 3 games? I think we all still think we need a centre forward. But judging by that defensive display yesterday, do we need a bit more help in that department as well?
I know there was a few comments yesterday about the fact that Miggy wasn't starting. And then when you look, if you put Miggy on and then you look towards the bench, who do you bring on later on if you've played them all your best players at the beginning? If you're struggling, it's a real, that's like Sam said, we have got some really good players and they're just not managed correctly. And tactically, we're not set up correctly. And that's, really difficult when you're watching it. And like yesterday when we had the, when the second goal went in, Steve Bruce he could have had a plan B there. I'm not even sure there was a plan A, to be honest, but he could have had a plan B there. It just seems like nothing was being done. So, we do need help defensively. I think we could do with a right back, to be fair, but I think tactics are our main issue.
Yeah, I would agree. Dave, he's asking who I supported before the age of 12. I've supported the Toons since I could put my own shoes on. My dad wouldn't let us go to the match when I was a kid, but I did go to football with my granddad. It is in my book, Every Boy's Dream. My granddad was a referee assessor, and I went to numerous games. I went to Gateshead. I did 2 full seasons at Gateshead and watched them win the Northern Premier League with Terry Hibbert and Bob Toppin playing. Fantastic to see Terry Hibbert play. I went to Hartlepool. I went to Darlington, went as far as Carlisle, because as I say, my granddad was a referee and then he was a referee assessor. So he sat in the stands and marked the referees out of 10. So I was in the director's box at a lot of games, but I didn't go to my first Newcastle game until 1984, which was, of course, Kevin Keegan's last game against Liverpool in the 2-2 draw. in the promotion season. So, but I had supported Newcastle since Keegan signed. That was when I decided I was going to support Newcastle, when Kevin Keegan signed in 82. So my first game was 84, and I've never looked back. And I've only missed 6 home games since 1984 through illness, work, or holidays. So not a bad record once I got into them. But yeah, that's my story in a nutshell. Kendall, who do we need? Where do we need to strengthen?
First of all, for me personally, I think we need a centre back who can play out from the back, because we have absolutely no mobility at the back whatsoever, and we constantly back pass. I just honestly don't understand that, why like Lascelles has been passing backwards since 4 years ago. Like, I don't understand how his game hasn't progressed from that point. So for me, we need a mobile centre back who can play out from the back. We need a right back. I mean, I know Mankey does a job most of the time, but what's a job? We need like someone who is actually good, who will actually improve us. It's not just about being average and doing a job every game. If we want cover at left back, depending on Richie, depending on what Max likes, where Maxie's going to play, what his tactics are going to be, I don't know. I think maybe he's a left back cover. I could go on for hours, to be honest. Here we definitely need a striker. Obviously that's inevitable. We need another striker in. As Sam says, until we know what identity we want, until we know what style of football we want to play, there's not really any point in signing anyone who is just going to be, another signing on paper and is not going to do anything for our team or for the game under a manager like Bruce. I know, like, obviously people are saying that he's got dinosaur tactics, but I mean, there's managers older than him in the league. For example, Roy Hodgson, who is far more progressive than Steve Bruce. Like, you just got to look at Crystal Palace. Obviously, a lot of people had them on paper to go down this year. And if you've seen the way they've played their last 2 games, it's just they've got a solid system. They know what they're doing. They've got a solid structure. They've got their standout players. Brighton yesterday, exactly the same. And we just look like we just don't know what we are, what we're doing. And as you say yourself, Steve, how can you fit into a team when you don't know obviously what you're going to be playing every week? If you're going to keep switching it up, you're not going to have a system. No one's going to settle, and it's just going to be riding on luck every week, as we were last year. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. As we said a few obviously shows ago, it's time for him, like Steve Bruce now, to put his mark on the game, to know how he wants to play, to have that system. So it'll be interesting to see what changes after this week, I think, because now it really is like knuckle down and start having a plan in place.
Yeah, I think you're right. Great points, lady. Stephen Robinson says Scott Parker is a shout for a manager. Malcolm Taylor says Kevin Nolan. Trull says, I think we need a non-English manager, so Nobby for me. Stephen Parker says, what about Ginola? But Ginger Hoskin does point out Ginola had a heart attack, and I think, to be honest, managing Newcastle United is enough to give anyone a heart attack at the best of time.
I don't give me no joy, just high blood pressure. So
yeah. Exactly. Get Keegan back, says Spackhoider. I wish you'd change your name. Honestly, I get wrong for saying that name, but then I feel wrong for when I say it. People go, Steve, you shouldn't be saying that name out. But anyway, it could be a name, mate. I don't know. Samantha, Kendall, and Sav for Newcastle manager and backroom team.
Yeah, imagine that.
Even though Samantha said she would make the tea long. D. Christian says top 10 on paper, bottom 3 were Bruce. Nice guy, but no idea. Richard Morris says the players let Bruce down. He had to play the same team. He will not do it again. Good point. Yeah, Richard, good point. I mean, I've got to say, as I say, everyone starts with a clean sheet with me this season. And yeah, maybe you're right. But, tactically, he should have seen that Lamptey was going to cause problems with his pace. Should have put Almiron in, but it's all very well with hindsight, isn't it? Ginger Hoskin says Sevilla manager has a real tactical mind. If we offered him a $5 million a year, he'd come. Danny Gardner says that pink kit is bob on. I think he likes it, Sav. Chris Stabbard says I'd find every lazy player week in, week out. Lazy players picking up thousands for doing what? Nothing. Fair enough. Ashley needs to do what he did with Big Sam. If it gets worse, get rid early. Not what he did with McLaren and wait. Again, like the pressure building up from Spenny Mag there. Tom says Pochettino would be a good shout if we could get him. I think we need a decent manager to attract decent players, says Russell Johnson. We need to get rid of Shelby and get a replacement. He looked like he couldn't be bothered. I've said that for years, mate. But obviously you get shot down in flames if you have an opinion sometimes as a Newcastle fan. Samantha, I'm sure you saw... we'll just finish off there. Aston Villa did finally win that game, I think 1-0. So that's a good start to the season for Aston Villa. But yes, Malcolm MacDonald yesterday, we asked him about Hayden on his brief visit to the match day live. Not a fan of Hayden. How do you feel about Hayden? Should he be in the team, or would you prefer to see a different combination in the middle? What's your ideal centre midfield pairing, Samantha?
For me, I don't think we can play a midfield two. I just don't think that we have the right profile of players. I think we need to play three. And Hayden's got legs. He loves to throw himself into a tackle, but he can't do it on his own. And I am not a fan of Shelby. I started a conversation on it yesterday. I got absolutely slated, but I will stand behind it that yes, he will play an absolutely fantastic long pass. Yes, he can bring a bit of sparkle, but there's more to the game than that. And I think that he invites pressure because he tries to play too deep. A halfback doesn't suit us. There's not enough mobility in our squad. Hayden brings mobility, but he's limited in terms of what he can do. He needs to be able to recycle the ball and give it an outlet. His passing stats yesterday were better than Shelby's because he was safer. Now, that doesn't mean that it progressed us up the pitch, but for every time that he played a short pass to someone else with good passing accuracy, Shelby was hitting a long pass that was getting brought down, and Brighton then played right through us. So, I mean, he cost £1 million from Arsenal. There's been a few gentle comments about England. I think he just needs more support around him. So actually, for me, I would rather, if he had to play in a two, it would be with Hendrick. If it's a three, it would be Longstaff, just trying to move slightly forward towards the 10 so that Hayden can still protect the defence. That's what I think our squad's built for. Our squad isn't built for 4-4-2.
Good point, Sav.
I totally agree with the playing with Hendrick. I think yesterday it really didn't work with Shelby. Shelby was running around, cracking the ball, passing it away. He looked lost. Yeah, and it's not only yesterday, it's quite often. Every now and then he'll play a really good game and I think, I'm wrong. And then we'll just resort to something like yesterday. I think with Hendrick it would work better, but, we've got to sort out our formation first before, we go forward from that.
Mm-hmm. Kendall?
I completely agree. I think Hayden is obviously, I don't think he's like necessarily, a CDM, but I think he's leaning more towards that. And I think Shelby's just sort of hanging in the middle. He doesn't attack enough for me and he doesn't defend enough for me. So he's just sort of in between what he puts a good ball in now and again, takes a decent free kick now and again, but he's not consistent enough for me. Personally, I would agree if it's going to be obviously a two, it's going to have to be Hayden and Hendrick for me. I think if you want Hayden to have more support around him, he needs another CDM style player to give him that cover so that the wingers and obviously whoever's playing the number 10 role can then go more forward depending on what formation we're trying to play. 4-4-2 doesn't suit Shelby whatsoever because, as we know, we all play too flat and too deep, and that doesn't suit Shelby whatsoever because he's not a defensive-minded player. His head goes straight down. You can tell he's not interested because there's not really anything for him to do. So, yeah, for me, it's got to be Hayden and Hendrick, and I obviously hope next game they do see that because it is against Spurs, so we do need to be a bit more defensively minded, but not as flat as 4-4-2.
A lot of people on here tonight seem to be blaming Lascelles for yesterday's performance, and I've seen at least 3 or 4 people say that they want Clark in on, against Tottenham. I know we've got to play Morecambe first in the cup, but for the next league game, put Clark in. Is Lascelles, is Lascelles been found out, Samantha?
Lascelles hasn't looked right since Rafa left. He's got limited mobility, but he was always able to kind of, fire the team up. I don't understand why it's not working with Fernandez beside him. I don't know if there's after effects of the injury he got at the end of last season. It just doesn't seem right. I think Clark will have to play tomorrow to get another game under his belt. I can't see Bruce taking him out of the team unless he makes a mistake. However, the way that we're set up at the minute, I mean, if I'm an attacking player, I'm going to go and stand on Lascelles and or ask for a ball, just, round the side of him, anything to get him on the half turn, because he's so poor. And I think the way that teams are tactically playing are exposing a lot of the issues that we have in the team. And Bruce isn't trying to set us up to cover any of those issues that we have. So when Lascelles is being a captain, I think he's decent. He's not the best defender, but he was poor against West Ham. Actually, him and Fernandez have been poor in both games. They haven't been dominant in the tackle. They haven't been dominant in the air. And I think Fernandez was standout at the end of last season. He was the only fit defender, but he's been good. Something's not right with Lascelles, and I just can't see Bruce dropping him though. But as captain, he just doesn't seem like he's got any fire at the minute, and that's a worry.
Sav, Lascelles, not my choice really. I've got to be honest, as captain in that team, I don't see any leadership skills in him. I do think he's getting found out, if I'm perfectly honest. But again, early days. Let's see how the new players settle in. What's your take on Lascelles? Would you drop him at the weekend and bring Kieran Clark in?
I think based on yesterday, yeah, I would. I mean, I've seen a few sort of clips of him, and he was playing so deep, not rushing into the ball. There was no sort of drive in him. He looked like he couldn't be asked. It was, he's supposed to be the captain, so he's supposed to be sort of, leading everyone. And yesterday there was no leadership. That's why they was all screaming at each other and getting so frustrated. And he should be the one that's there, sort of commanding over the top. And there was nothing there. And, I think, yeah, definitely I wouldn't play him at the weekend.
Okay, Kendall?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, the reason Lascelles is so, adored by our fans, I wouldn't necessarily say adored, but he's so supported by a lot of our fans, is because when we were going down the Swanee in the season that we got relegated, he was the one to step up. And for once in the club's last 10 years, he was the one to come forward and say, look, we weren't good enough. We played badly, players weren't up for it. We need to change this mentality and we need to, be better than we were. This was obviously 4 years ago now. And then he got given the armband on the back of that that mentality that he had. When he's on the pitch, without his leadership skills, he is, for me, a below average player. I had arguments with people on Twitter yesterday about this because they were saying, you obviously never saw him play in 2017, 2018 if you think that he's not good enough now. But that was, 3 years ago now, 3 seasons, and he hasn't improved his game at all. As I've said before, 10 minutes ago, that he can't play out from the back. For me, yesterday the game was crying out for Richie, because when your heads go down, you need someone like Richie on the field beside you who is passionate, who shouts at you, who gets your game up. I saw absolutely none of that from Lascelles yesterday, which is a shame because I think the best positive about him is his leadership skills. He hasn't been right since Rafa left. I think he wanted to impress a person like Rafa because of Rafa's experience, and obviously the way Rafa played and coached suited him a lot better. Steve Bruce hasn't got the bottle to take the captain's armband off him. But on the other hand, who would you give it to if it wasn't Lascelles? I'm not entirely sure, because for me, naturally, Richie would be my choice, but he doesn't play enough now. So he can't obviously then be the captain. I would possibly maybe even try Dubravka, because I feel like he leads out a lot from the back. He gives directions, but obviously to have a goalkeeper as a captain is quite unusual. It depends on, I know Lloris for Tottenham and stuff, but it's quite unusual. So yeah, I think now this is sort of his last season now where he can be at his peak, because he's going towards his late 20s now, so it's time for him, book his ideas up and show that he is more than just the armband now.
Yeah, a lot of people dreading the Tottenham game. Chris has probably put it in a very subtle way. How many goals did Lascelles cost us last season? He's crap. Full stop.
He's not consistent enough at all. Always always a mistake leads to a goal. Always.
Trevor Arkle says, ladies and gents, good evening from Dubai. Good evening, Trevor. Nice to have you on. Brian Crute says, we need Harry Potter to sort this mess out. Yeah, I mean, it's Nathan I know is watching, so it wouldn't be right to go through the programme without at least giving Joelinton a mention, Samantha. He came on again yesterday. Joelinton watch. Don't forget, I'm giving him 10 games. What was your views on Joelinton's performance yesterday, Samantha?
He touched the ball 8 times. 8 times in 20 minutes. Now, I don't blame him. Fraser played, 70 minutes, 60, 70 minutes, had about 30 touches. I didn't give off about Joelinton on Twitter because I didn't even realise he came on. My only comment on that is, why would you bring Joelinton on and not Matt Ritchie when we're backs against the wall, when we're having such a difficult time? Our set pieces were awful. Our crosses were pointless. The football was like a time bomb that nobody wanted to have. And you bring Joelinton on for what exactly? Bring Ritchie on. He shouts at people, he screams, he runs, he puts a bit of energy into it. If I'm Matt Ritchie sitting on the bench, I'm kind of looking and thinking, what? I mean, you're putting him on the left wing instead of me. I don't understand. So, I mean, he touched the ball 8 times. The game was over, but I thought it was very odd. And I know people joke about it. I think he must have some kind of an appearance clause in his contract, because I don't understand why. I mean, there was a comment that someone made about the face that Shelby made when he realised that Joelinton was going on for him, as in, I might have been shit, but you're putting him on. I couldn't understand that choice, but it's Bruce.
Yeah, it is. Joelinton watch. Sav, what was your take on it? Sam says he's touched the ball 8 times, so I mean that's probably an improvement, isn't it?
Well, no, as Sam said, couldn't remember him going on. I was a little bit the same. When I saw he was coming on, I was like, oh, Christ, it's this bad. And now Joelinton's coming on to try and save the day, and that's never going to happen. And, I really try and hold off of slating Joelinton because I know he gets a lot on social media and that, but, you can't argue really with what's, the past season. The only thing I kind of try and think of is that a season ago he was being started every single match and everyone was raging about that, and now he's not being started, so a little bit of progression is happening there, so at least we haven't got to see so much of him. But no, I can't really remember him being on. He was that much of a non-event for me yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it does become, a poisonous place, Twitter, ultimately whenever he comes on. I've seen it now erupt. I mean, I was given some stick last year for my reaction about him. As I say, that's why I've decided to give him 10 games this year. But Kendall, it just seems as if we're going through the same old issues with Joelinton. He just doesn't seem capable of playing in the Premier League, and 9 times out of 10 ends up flat on his face when through on goal.
I'm going to say a piece about Joelinton because I'm just sick. I'm just sick of having to repeat myself. Like, look, at the end of the day, yes, we all know it's not his fault that the price tag is not his fault. £40 million for him was not his fault. So the expectations that come with such a high price tag, I feel from that respect, because he didn't say, look, I'm worth 40 million, I'm not going to leave if I don't get 40 million. So that's fair enough. But we've seen now for over a year that he has very, very little positives to his game. So we've played him as a number 9, not right. We've played him as a winger, not right. We need maybe even just, this is the thing though, we can't just we can't afford to fit the team around him because he's our record signing. Like, if he plays him defensively just behind the number 9, centrally just behind the number 9, maybe he will be better there, I don't know, but that we don't have the time to afford him that, that luxury of playing him around just to suit him. Again, bringing him on yesterday was a mistake. The only thing I can think of is, like everyone else says, he's got an appearance clause in his contract. He's not an impact sub. He's not even an impact player. He doesn't make one impact on the game apart from negatively. So why he was brought on yesterday, I have no idea. No offense, Joe, if you're watching. But like, we haven't really got any impact subs in that sense, and he's obviously like necessarily the bottom of the bunch, but we don't have any choice right now, because without Wilson, Gale's injured. I mean, if you're playing Carroll and he comes off, then you've only got Joelinton as a choice. But for me yesterday, the game needed Richie, not another forward, if that was the way we were going to play. So yeah, 20 minutes to make one positive. Again, unfortunately for him and everyone else with the abuse that obviously they give him on social media, he didn't make one good touch. He only had 8 touches, as we say, in 20 minutes. So yeah, I don't really know what to suggest on the Joelinton front, if I'm honest. I think it's a case of trying him in the last resort position, or giving him a loan out for less pressure, less expectation, more game time. Hopefully improves his game, and see where we go from there, to be honest.
Little Musgrave says Joelinton always scores away at Spurs in the league. Yeah, he's got a good record against Spurs, so potentially could be a match winner next week. Marco takes a little bit more of a different tack. Joelinton couldn't score in a brothel. Alan Smith's straight to the point, 40 million down the drain. And Ian Hutchinson talking about the progress that Sav was talking about. He's on the bench now. He wants to see him progress into the stands. So yeah, I think we're all done there with Nathan's favourite player, Joelinton, and I look forward to seeing how he does in the next 7 games.
I've never seen fans agree about a player so much in my life.
When I was saying this last season, I was getting pelters for criticising him every week. But glad to see everyone's come round to my way of thinking eventually. I hate to see players getting lambasted, but I think most people can see now that he's just quite incapable of playing football in the Premier League. Tyler did ask us a question, Samantha. Sorry, it's taken us a while to get round to it. He's just asking about Jamal Lewis. What's your thoughts on him? Jamal Lewis, of course, did see somebody asking what his injury was like. Been no reports on that today that I've seen, other than the one in the Chronicle which says he's got a nasty eye injury and they're going to have to see how bad it is. They weren't too concerned about the cut, but they were concerned about the abrasion in his eye, so they're going to have to see how that is. But no team news as yet for that. Didn't even say whether he trained today, so I'm not, unless the girls have heard something different, then no news on that. But what's your take on him so far? I mean, it's difficult to judge after a couple of games. He's had a game where he looked like a world beater, and he's had a game where he looked as if he hadn't kicked the ball in his life, and struggling to keep up with Lamptey. So it's hard to judge him, isn't it? I would have said.
Yeah, I think so. And for the game yesterday, Lamptey wasn't actually his man, and in the first 10 minutes, the amount of screaming that he was doing to try and get someone over to support him, Alan St. Maximum struggled. He couldn't, from where I was watching, Lamptey was for Alan St. Maximum to be watching. We were dropping into a flat 5 every time they were coming towards us. I saw a graphic of the 2 banks of 4 and all the space in between. So, against West Ham, he was very good. He is a good defender. He is good at going forward. He just was left absolutely alone yesterday. I thought the most embarrassing thing that happened was that Steve Bruce brought Hendricks over. Her guy doesn't want to play on the right wing, never mind the fact that he trailed him over to the left wing to try and help Jamal Lewis, because, Brighton had set up to just solely attack that side. So he had a torrid game. He wasn't getting support or help. The rest of the team wasn't playing particularly well. He's got the injury now. I haven't heard anything. He is going to be a good signing, but, we'll say it time and time and again. Everybody needs to work together and do their jobs. And until that starts happening, we're not going to see the best out of the players all of the time. We need competition at left back, certainly, and at the minute he doesn't have any. Dummett hopefully will be back in a couple of weeks. But as it stands at the minute, we're looking like we have no left back for tomorrow, never mind Spurs at the weekend. So it's too early to judge, but I mean, this guy, he's going to be a fantastic left back. We have done very, very well to get him, but we can't leave him exposed. It's not fair on anyone. So he will get better.
Okay, Jamal Lewis, impressed, Sav?
You know, at the game against West Ham, I thought he was brilliant. Like, how he wasn't knackered. He was up both ends of the pitch. He was attacking, then he was back defending. I thought he was brilliant. Yesterday, obviously, you know, he struggled quite a lot. And, you know, St Max, I'm not slating him at all. I think he's brilliant. But I found the last couple of matches, he's sort of like hobbled off. And then the next day they say, oh, actually, he's all right. I felt that he sort of didn't support him. Well, not that he can defend very well, but he was just completely lacking support down that side. And then I think it was really unfortunate. It was definitely a red card. You know, what happened to him. I haven't seen anything today. I did have a look. I haven't seen anything on St Max either. But yeah, I mean, I think he's going to turn into a really good player for us. But, you know, as long as the team's set up with the right structure.
Yeah. Okay, Kendall.
Yeah, completely agree. 4-4-2 left him way too exposed when Maxi was the cover, because Maxi didn't provide any cover. And yes, it's the winger's job to, you know, provide cover for the wing back, but as I've said in the first 5 minutes, obviously we know that Maxi isn't defensively minded at all. He's very attacking, very creative. So to use him as cover for a wing back like Lamptey was a mistake. So I don't think yesterday we can blame Jamal Lewis whatsoever, because he didn't really have a choice. And the cover that he had available wasn't good enough when the midfield is supposed to provide the fullbacks cover. I think he looked fantastic against West Ham. Whether or not that was because West Ham was they were a very, very bad team for us to beat them after yesterday. So yeah, I think he looked bright. I watched him when he played for Norwich last year. I thought he was brilliant. I did say at the beginning of the season when we signed him that I felt that tactically that Bruce would ruin a player like him. I really hope that's not the case, because I would be devastated to have a talent like that wasted because of tactics, because of formation. So fingers crossed the structure improves and we find an identity and he fits in, because I think he's going to be a fantastic player, and he's obviously still only really young. So, and as Sam said, he's got no competition at the moment. So for him to be as, you know, up for it as he is, it is a good sign. So yeah, fingers crossed that we improve from here and we can see more from him.
Dummett trained today, and Ross Alexander asks, when he's fit, would you put him straight back into the left-sided centre-half position? We just seem so ropey at the back and we seem to panic with the ball at our feet. Would you put Dummett in, Samantha?
I think he needs a couple of games. I struggle to think what our best setup is at the back. I don't see Dummett as a centre back. I know that, you know, Rafa had a look at him there, and maybe Bruce did. I do think he's a defensive left back. You know, depending on what happens with Lascelles, I think unless we get someone else in, we're probably going to be best with Kieran Clark and Fernandez. But, you know, we invite so much pressure that, as I said, you know, it's like the football's a time bomb for players. They don't want it. We'll do anything to get rid of it, whether it's playing back sideways or just hoofing the ball up. So regardless of who we're playing, we need to find a level of comfort playing with the ball. I wouldn't say Dummett's a particularly ball-playing defender. You know, none of them really are, apart from Fernandez and Schär. And, you know, I don't think we have time to go into a conversation on Schär's strengths and weaknesses. Maybe we'll leave that to Sav. But, you know, I think Dummett for me is a left back, and he should be fighting it out with Jamal Lewis for that spot.
Okay, Sav?
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, Dummett's left back, but then, you know, I think Jamal Lewis has got to be given a chance. You know, it depends how long he's out for, really. And it's like Sam says, you know, we've got to find our comfort zone of what works best for our squad. And at the moment, it's a complete mix-up. Who knows, you know, it's really frustrating to watch, you know, especially like a game like yesterday when we just fall apart at the back and, like, you know, there's no defence there at all. And I think that it's a few things have got to be tried before we can sort of, see what does work.
Kendall, is a question for you. Do you have Spanish heritage?
No, if he's asking about Atletico, it's because I went to a game when I was on holiday when I was 9. Fell in love with a 19-year-old Fernando Torres and followed them ever since that point, even when he left and retired. So yeah, that's why.
All right, that answers that.
No
Paul
Spanish
Dummett.
heritage whatsoever, even though I do wish.
Paul Dummett, would you have him back in the team? And would you play him on the left side as centre half?
No, I wouldn't have him back in straight away. I think he needs game time under his belt. If he is fit in the cup games, I wouldn't put him in straight away. If we're going to revert to sort of a 3 at the back, 2 wing back role, for me, Dummett doesn't fit in there whatsoever. In my opinion, because I feel like Jamal Lewis is more of a wing back type of player. And obviously with Richie at left back as well, he's more of that sort of role. He's not obviously a primary left back. So for me, I don't think I would have Dummett anywhere near the team at the moment. Whether or not we stick with the 4 at the back, I don't know. Maybe there's a chance to be had there, but yeah, not right now, I don't think.
Okay, last 10 minutes. We're going to answer the question that everyone's asking. Spenny Mag, Rian Brannigan, what lineup would you send out for the cup this week, Samantha?
I don't think it'll be too different to what we played against Blackburn. Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be pretty much the same lineup. I think left back's going to be a bit of a problem. I don't know whether Joelinton's agreed to go anywhere, and I worry that if he is going to go somewhere, he didn't play well against Blackburn. He didn't really put himself about. I do think that he needs to be told to bomb forward and somebody needs to fill in, and that's where you get your best out of Joelinton, which will mean that Manquillo plays on the left. But yeah, I think it'll be the same team. I think it'll be a pretty terrible game again. I think Joelinton will start up front. Maybe Carroll, but I don't think he'll risk him. Yeah, I think it'll be very similar to what we played against Blackburn. I can't see many changes. I don't think he'll risk anybody. And I can see another low energy, low quality, maybe even penalties match. I don't see a spark in it.
Yeah. Okay, Sab. What team would you stick out on Wednesday against Morecambe? Would you do the same as we did against Blackburn last week and change it? Wholesale changes, give those players a run out who didn't get a chance, or would you do as some people have suggested, and that's punish the team from yesterday and make them play?
I wouldn't put the team back out that played yesterday, just because we've got so many injuries, and I know they played absolutely dire yesterday. But I don't think that we can afford putting them out for the cup game and then getting any more. I think he will send out who we played last week. I think Joelinton will start. And, I think that, like Sam says, it's going to be one of those games where you feel like falling asleep. We play all at the back, just defend the goal. Not really, we long ball up the front and there's no one there. Just one of those usual, Newcastle games that we were used to last season.
Yeah. Okay, Kendall. What team would you put out tomorrow? Wednesday, sorry.
Yeah, for me, looking at obviously Bruce's form and the way he sets up for cup games, I think it'll be Kraft at right back, Fernandez and Clark in the centre, Richie at left back. I think Fraser will start on the wing. I'm not sure if he'll start Maxi, depending on his injury or not. I'm not entirely sure. So maybe it's Almiron, and then I think Joelinton and Carroll. That's the way I see it being on Wednesday. I don't think we can afford to go into the game with an arrogance that other Premier League teams tend to have against lower league teams, where you put out a weakened side because you think that you're better than the lower league team. Because as we were told, we're shown by Blackburn, we're not can't afford to be arrogant. We don't have the place to be arrogant. So yeah, I think that's how we'll probably set up on Wednesday, and we'll just see how it goes, to be honest. But I have a funny feeling Joelinton's going to start. So, and yeah, maybe he's Murphy as well.
£10 for the stream, Sam. I mean, it beggars belief, this, doesn't it, really? I mean, £10 last week for Blackburn. Okay, it's a championship team. We all moaned and groaned. Most of us, still paid it to watch it. Some people got streams which weren't very good, but a tenner for a game against Morecambe in the Carabao Cup. I mean, what on earth's going on?
Scandalous. I mean, you go live to a stadium for a lot of cup games, you can get tickets for £5, £10, £15. I paid for the stream last week. Absolute waste of money. I won't be paying it this week. If I get a stream, I get a stream. If not, I'll just tune in to your show to listen to you guys complain about it. But I just don't think it's fair, especially at a time when people can't get to the stadiums. There's a lot of pressure on the league to give free games. If it was a fiver, I could understand, but £10, it's taking the piss, and I don't think it's fair on fans to have to fork that out. No,
I mean, it is extracting the urine. It really is. I mean, Musgrave says, I wonder why people stream illegally. Sav, a tenner for Morecambe. I mean, fair, I'm trying to justify £10 for Blackburn now, but it's just like daylight robbery, isn't it? Especially when it's only one camera.
Yeah, I mean, do I think it's a rip-off? Well, of course I do. Will I be weak and pay for it? Yeah. It's kind of like one of those things. The stream weren't even that great. It was laggy. The commentator came on about 10 minutes in. I thought there was going to be no commentary at all. And it was like he woke up from behind his desk and he was there. But I will pay for it because, I'm a bit of a mug, but it's not worth it at all. It's an absolute rip-off. But there are people, like me, exactly the same as me, that will pay it. And, like you said, legally streaming, it wasn't very good. So, there are going to be people who pay it, but it is a complete rip-off.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. Somebody made the point there. They wouldn't mind paying it if the money was going to the lower league teams.
Exactly,
but I mean,
what I was going to say. Exactly what I was going to say.
Kendall seems to be, that wouldn't be so bad, would it? If it was a donation to save somebody like Macclesfield or whatever.
Yeah, we've seen several teams now several clubs who have gone into down the Swanee because of this whole pandemic. Obviously, Macclesfield. I know Bury. Obviously, that was before. We've seen several teams struggling money-wise. So for me, the £10, if we knew it was going to the lower league teams, fair enough. But then obviously the bigger teams are then going to argue, well, what's the point? Because they're not getting anything out of it. As we know, money talks in football, unfortunately, and that's just the way it is. So it's never going to go to the lower league teams. I don't blame people for streaming illegally. I did it last week. And I mean, it was fine. It was HD. It was all right. It took us 41 minutes to get it on full screen, but that was my fault. I don't really blame anyone at all, if I'm honest, if they find a stream and don't pay for it, because, as we said, the money is it's not going to the lower league teams, which it should do. So, yeah, what can you say?
Nathan makes a good point. Should have been a pass, a tenner for all the early round games, then maybe another pass for the last 16. Yeah, that would have been a good idea. And good idea, as long as not one penny goes to Sunderland, says Paul Davison. I will ask you one question, girls. Now, be careful, because this can be controversial, but I do want to ask you. Somebody asked it earlier on about taking the knee. It seems to have brought to the head by the QPR game at the weekend. QPR, I think, had played Nottingham Forest the week before, and basically Forest hadn't taken the knee, so QPR didn't. Then in QPR's home game at the weekend, they didn't take the knee, and they were lambasted for it. It seems to be a lack of direction, Samantha, from the powers that be in the EFL. The Premier League, it seems to be quite straightforward. Everyone seems to be continuing to do it, but is it something we should continue? Is it something we should have said, right, look, that comes to an end at the end of the season, or is it? Do you feel strongly enough to say that it needs to continue? I mean, I'm just interested in your views on it.
The problem that we have now is everyone's focusing on a conversation about whether we should or shouldn't do it, and the focus has been taken off the reason that we were doing it in the first place. I implore everybody watching the show that watches it now and hasn't read the QPR statement and what Les Ferdinand has said to go and read it and understand why that decision was made. Whether people choose to do it, it's not for us to say whether it should or shouldn't happen, but we should spend every minute that we would thinking about the reason for the movement. There are people that support it and there are people that don't. That's fair enough. But the focus should be on the movement and not what people are doing on TV and spending time arguing about whether it should or shouldn't be done. That's not the point. And I think the point that Les Ferdinand made was, you know, I'm only being interviewed and I'm only putting a statement out because you picked up on TV that we weren't doing this. Well, how about, and then read the statement about the other things that he goes on to talk about. We're losing focus and it happens all the time. And, you know, he brought out the comment about the NHS clappers as well. Again, it became a chore. It became a, you know what, I'm not going to clap. I'm going to bring a drum out and I'm going to beat it. And, you know, down in our harbour, we had boats hitting their horn and stuff. And it's like the focus has gone away from what it's about. So for me, I just want to keep bringing the conversation back to the point. And the point is the movement. It's not about, you know, what it looks like on TV or the optics of it.
Yep, good point. Well made, Sav.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It is about the movement and, you know, comparing it to the NHS clap. And like Sam said, you know, I had a neighbour over the road that used to bring his keyboard out once a week. And it was like, if you didn't turn up to the clap, you were judged for it. You know, I stopped turning up to the clap because I just felt it was who could, you know, make the loudest noise. And, you know, I was probably judged for it. It didn't mean that I thought no less of, you know, supporting the NHS. And it's the same with, you know, taking the knee and the movement. You know, it's not there for show. It's just, it's more there. You know, you have your opinions on it and how you feel about it. And it shouldn't be made into a show. You know, the same with the NHS clap.
And Kendall, finally you.
I feel massive. I think anyone who follows me on Twitter knows that I feel massively strongly towards this movement, and I have supported not even just the Black Lives Matter movement, but Black Lives in general for several years now. For me, the taking the knee is now an empty gesture because the very corporations and the very outlets who are forcing this narrative to take the knee for people who don't take the knee are the ones who lambast people and minorities. The media lambast Sterling for buying his mama house. So don't then make it political for your clickbait news articles that people haven't taken the knee like you care, because you don't. You don't care. You're making it a situation for you to gain traction in the sense that you look like you care about it, but you don't. So for me, it is completely up to the individual, the teams, organisations, whether they want to take the knee. I will not lambast anyone who doesn't, because as I've just said, I feel like now it's being used for propaganda reasons over, you know, a genuine cause for the movement. If you want to take the Black Lives Matter movement into your own hands and take your part in racism, make bans for racism within the game longer, because you get a couple of game ban and that's it. So for me, there's got to be more done by the very people who are mourning about QPR and Coventry not taking the knee over, you know, those who choose not to take the knee. So that's my opinion, to be honest. I could speak for hours about that. So yeah.
No, listen, great to hear your opinions on that, girls. Thanks for doing that as well. And that's it. End of the show. Big thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, who has come on board for this month and helped towards the running costs to StreamYard. Big thank you to you, mate. And I'll be back tomorrow night at 6:00 with Liam Kennedy from the Shields Gazette. Always great to speak to Liam and hopefully get some kind of idea as to whether we've got any more players coming in. He always seems to have a little bit of info, a little bit of contact. But Samantha, Sav, Kendall, thanks for joining us, and hopefully one or two of you can join us on Wednesday for the Morecambe Cup game. If not,
shout out to Stu's wife Maria as well, because she's been a massive supporter with Stu over the past few weeks that we've started Ladies Night, and she always makes such amazing comments for the ladies. So just want to give a big shout out to Maria, because I did say that I would do that, and she's been a great supporter along with Stu. So yeah. Just
brilliant, thanks, Stu.
Before the show ends.
Thanks, Stu, and thanks, Maria, and well done, Kendall, for remembering. Great stuff. Thanks for joining us. As I say, if I don't see you on Wednesday, have a good week, and I'll see you next Monday. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.